What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another episode of What's the Word Dirty Bird. It is another What's the Word Wednesday. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. We are on it's another hump day, but we do this every night, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So shouts out to everybody in the chat so far. We're definitely gonna jump in the chat and say what's up. But tonight we're gonna talk about some Atlanta Falcons news, and then we're going to break down the Falcons' identity, what I think the Falcons' identity should be moving forward and heading into this season. And then, of course, we're going to get into some fan Q&A as we always do. But with that being said, I'm going to jump right into the chat and say what's up to everybody. Bubba Gump, what's going on, man? He says, what up? Aunt Jay, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining as always. Joseph Thornton, what's going on, man? I appreciate you. I hope y'all having a great week so far. Robert, Rise Up Ponder, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight. Ghost Peppers, what's going on, man? What's good? We got the professor in the building. What's going on, Noah? That's one of the bros right there. Shouts out to him. He also does a show later on tonight as well. He's out west. So what's up, man? I appreciate you joining tonight. And YMOF Jamal, what's going on? He says Jews Day. What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining. And Isaac Crimes, what's going on, man? So y'all definitely share out this content, share out this live video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for your boy. We are currently on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Don't just hit the like and subscribe button here, but also go over to my boy Six Man K Styles. He's also on the road to 1,000. I think he's less than, I think like 120, if I'm not mistaken, away from 1,000. So shouts out to him, and also go over, if you're not already, subscribe to Mad Mike Sports as well. Those are my bros, part of the heavy hitters. So definitely go over and hit that like and subscribe button for them as well. But with that being said, we're gonna jump right into the first topic of the evening, which is Atlanta Falcons news. And basically, as you guys know, we did have mandatory mini camp, which was Monday and Tuesday. Today, or I think it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. I know today was the last day of mandatory mini camps. A couple players sat out. Cordell Patterson was one of those guys who didn't participate in mandatory minicamp. He was held out, which I thought was pretty interesting. That Arthur Smith held him out, and then guys like Isaiah Oliver, Vincent Taylor, some of the guys that had surgical procedures during the offseason, or guys that are recovering from injury, they weren't at mandatory minicamps. But the main thing I took from the mandatory minicamps is guys are just building that camaraderie. The team is building that camaraderie. They talk to a lot of different players at mandatory mini camps. They talked to my number one draft pick, Drake London, and he said that the team has a really college feel about it. All of the guys are really close knit, especially this young rookie class that came in together. A lot of those guys are really close knit. He said they do a lot of stuff together. Arnold Ebiketie, all of those rookies that we brought in this year, Drake London, all of those guys, he said they're really close knit. D'Angelo Malone and all of those guys are really close knit. So I definitely love what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing coming out of the mandatory mini camps with this Atlanta Falcons team. As you know, football is one of those sports where you have to have that camaraderie. You have to understand what your teammate is going to do and build that chemistry. I always talk about chemistry, and chemistry is really important. And it seems like these guys are already building that chemistry. So really interesting things going on at Flowery Branch. Today they did talk to Arthur Smith. They interviewed him at mini camps, and he talked about how smart the backup quarterback, Desmond Ridder. He says he's light years ahead of a lot of young quarterbacks that he's been around in his time in the NFL. And he talked about him already kind of grasping the offense and, you know, being able to spit out the plays in the huddle, and him being able to command the huddle. So I think that was really interesting that Desmond Ridder is kind of turning heads at minicamp already. But as we know, Arthur Smith did say, you know, from the neck up, basically meaning his brain that he's one of the smartest quarterbacks, but he still is going to have to put it together out there on the field. So I'm really interested to see once training camp starts in a month or two, how well Desmond Ridder plays in these preseason games, to see if he can put not only his cerebralness or him being cerebral, if he's going to be able to correlate that on the field. Like, it's one thing to be out there throwing against air and things of that nature and being able to blurt out the plays and stuff like that. But can he do that when he's under duress? Can he do that once he gets between those white lines and the bright lights come on and all eyes are on him? But I'm really impressed so far from what I'm hearing from the coaches, like I said, from the coaching staff and things of that nature. And very interesting to get into training camp. If you listen to Arthur Smith, he didn't really feel too thrilled about mini camps. He basically stated that it's not a real practice because they can't, have any contact. Nobody has on pads and things of that nature. Another thing that was really interesting is it looks like Kyle Pitts and AJ Tyrell were kind of going back and forth with healthy competition. Iron sharpens iron, and those guys were going at it. He had a nice touchdown catch during the red zone drills. It looked like Kyle Pitts kind of got the better of AJ Tyrell during the drills today, which was really, really interesting to see those guys going head up, two of the better players, young players in the league. So I'm definitely interested to see when training camp, finally kicks off, we can see those different battles. They also talked a little bit about Matt Hennessey and Drew Dalman. Both of those guys will be competing for that starting center position. So that's another matchup that I'm looking forward to during training camp, to kind of see which player is going to have a leg up, which player is going to seize their opportunity and, take control of that starting center position. But with that being said, I am going to jump into the topic of the night, which is Atlanta Falcons, this team's identity, the Falcons team identity this season. I really think that it's going to be important this year, being that Arthur Smith and his coaching staff, Terry Fontenot, they're kind of finally getting a chance to put their fingerprints on this Atlanta Falcons team. And we've seen that a little bit last year where they tried to come in and kind of put their fingerprint on the offense, kind of trying to change this team from more of a finesse team to a more physical team and winning the line of scrimmage and things of that nature. But we didn't really do a great job last season necessarily. To me, we didn't do a good job of being able to get pressure on the quarterback, and we didn't do a really good job of stopping the run last year. We still struggled in those areas. But now that they have a year under their belt, they were kind of able to bring in and implement their system. Dean Pease, Arthur Smith, and those guys were able to implement their system going into year two. Now they were able to kind of cut a lot of those Dan Quinn, Thomas Dimitroff players. It's going to be really interesting this season to see with the guys that they brought in. It's going to be interesting to see if this team plays better on both lines of scrimmage, because that's what I watch as a Atlanta Falcons fan and as a football fan. Usually the team that wins the line of scrimmage wins the football games. And the teams that are good in the trenches, the offensive line, defensive line, usually are the better teams in the NFL. So I'm very, very, very interested this season to see if this Atlanta Falcons team improves on the offensive line and improves on the defensive line. We did bring in a lot of, edge rushers in the draft, and they kind of tried to reshape the offense and reshape the defense and retool. So it's going to be really interesting to see what this Falcons team can do this season. But with that being said, I do want to jump back into the chat really quick. And Noah says no show later tonight, but I do have my own vids on my channel in case. So you guys definitely go check out Noah's channel. Go check out his videos. He says he's not going live tonight, but normally he goes live on Wednesday nights as well. Shouts out to my boy Mad Mike Sports in the chat. What's going on? And Six Man K Styles, what's going on, man? I appreciate y'all joining me. Locked In Sports says, Jew, what's going on, bro? I appreciate you joining tonight. Tony Wright says, good evening. What's going on, man? For all the ones that's jumped into the chat before I was doing this, K Styles called the roll call. For the ones that I missed, man, what's going on? Dre Murphy says, what up? With you, Tony Wright. What's going on, Dre? Let's see here. And Tony Wright's already came with a question. He says, Jude, did you see Grady Jarrett's interview yesterday when I caught what he said? As he stated, this is the most enthusiastic mandatory minicamp he's been at here. I think that's because this team is young. One thing I can say is the Falcons did a good job of retooling and bringing in live bodies and young bodies. We have a lot of young players on this team. The Frank Darby's of the world that's always dancing and energetic. I think that that's going to breathe life into some of these guys, and these guys just look happy to come to work. These guys look like they're ready to get out there, put the pads on and things of that nature. So I'm very interested to see where this team goes this season. But I definitely think that Grady's right when he talks about the enthusiasm of the team. This is a whole new regime now that Matt Ryan is actually gone. We basically don't have a face right now. I really feel like this Falcons team really don't have a face of the organization right now. So it's going to be really interesting to see who takes the bull by the horns, who becomes like the leader of this team. Because we know when Matt Ryan was here, he was the alpha male. He was the leader and the captain in the locker room and things of that nature. He was leading the ship. So it's going to be interesting to see if Mariota or Grady Jarrett, one of these guys, step up and command the locker room. But I definitely think that these guys, being that they're a young group, I definitely think that they're a lot more enthusiastic, and these guys are ready to go out there and prove something this season. But with that being said, like I kind of was mentioning before I jumped into the chat, I really think that this Falcons team identity is going to be running the football, playing tough defense, and controlling the clock. Like I really think that that's what this team is going to be about. We've seen it a little bit last season. But we weren't able to see Arthur Smith's playbook in complete fashion. We only seen a limited amount of Arthur Smith's plays because Matt Ryan was mainly a pocket passer. Yes, Matt Ryan can run, but we know in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, he's an athletic quarterback. With Marcus Mariota, when he was in Tennessee with Arthur Smith, those guys are athletic quarterbacks and mobile quarterbacks. They're not your average pocket passer, or they're not a pocket passing quarterbacks. And we know Arthur Smith's scheme is a heavy run scheme, and he relies a lot on RPOs. He relies a lot on heavy play action. And having a quarterback like a Desmond Ridder, having a quarterback like a Marcus Mariota is going to bode well for the Atlanta Falcons this year. And I think we're going to see a lot of creative plays. We're going to be able to see Arthur Smith open up the playbook. Now, I do think a huge deciding factor on how this season pans out is going to come down to what I mentioned before. It's going to come down to the offensive line, and it's going to come down to the defensive line. On the offensive line, we know that we are a run-heavy team, so the offensive line is going to have to play a lot better than they played last season. I know Mike Davis didn't play well last season. I know he wasn't hitting the holes and things of that nature, but in a lot of times when he was going to run the football, there weren't many holes for him to run through. They weren't really big running lanes, and that had a lot to do with the offensive line play. So the offensive line play, they're going to have to up their game this season. We brought in a lot of guys to compete. The Fetties of the world that we brought in to compete with Caleb McGarry. I talked about Matt Hennessey and Drew Dalman, those guys competing for that center role or that center position. We know that Jalen Mayfield, who played that left guard position last season, he's competing as well in training camp as well for that left guard position. I feel like the only two positions that are set in stone on the offensive line is Jake Matthews, who's one of the better left tackles in the game, and Chris Lindstrom. Those two guys we know for sure. The right guard position and the left tackle position, those positions are pretty much nailed down. But for all of the rest of the offensive line positions, those guys are going to have to battle it out in training camp. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see if this offensive line can improve, because I really feel like that's what this offense is going to come down to this year is can we do well in the red zone, and can we do well in third and short and fourth and short. So last season we really struggled on third down conversions. We struggled to convert on third down. We struggled to convert on fourth down when we went for it. in short yardage situations, whether it was in the red zone or whether it was just at midfield or wherever we were on the field. All right. Excuse me, y'all. Look like my mic kind of went out. You guys let me know if you still can hear me. It cut out for a second. But with that being said, like I mentioned, it's going to be really interesting to see if this team can improve it. Like I said, in the red zone, it's going to be really interesting to see if this team can improve on third down conversions. Now, on the defensive side of things, I think that the defensive line, that's going to be huge for us being able to stop the run. Now, I do think that this Falcons team did a good job with bringing in Rashaan Evans from the Tennessee Titans, who's one of those physical downhill linebackers that loves to scrape and get in the backfield and make tackles for loss in the running game. And then they brought in also the kid in the draft, Troy Anderson, who's another athletic linebacker and a guy who can run sideline to sideline. And then you still have Deion Jones and Michael Walker. So I really feel like the strength of this defense is the linebacking core and the secondary. The defensive line is the biggest concern that I have for this Falcons team. And it's going to be interesting to see if this Falcons team can stop opposing teams on third down, because that's where we struggled last season. We struggled to get turnovers, and we struggled to stop teams from converting on third down and converting on fourth down. So it goes hand in hand, as I mentioned, on the offense, converting on third downs, converting on third and shorts, converting in the red zone. On defense, it's the same. It's flip-flop. Being able to stop teams on third downs, being able to get turn the ball over and turn teams over, and being able to get off the field on fourth down when teams decide to go for it. Those were the two biggest Achilles heels, I think, for the Falcons last season. And I really think the identity is going to start in the trenches. Like, I really think that that's the biggest issue. It has been the biggest issue for our Atlanta Falcons over the last couple years, is us being able to stop the run, being able to control the clock, and being able to close teams out. And I talked about it numerous times here on my channel. The way that you close teams out in the NFL is being able to ice the game by running the football when teams know you're going to run the football, and being able to get after the passer by rushing the passer on third and longs, third and mediums, and things of that nature, and putting pressure on the quarterback, which usually forces turnovers. But with that being said, you guys let me know in the chat what you guys think the identity of this team should be. I think that they're starting to already mold. Last year, they started the process of molding this team into being a physical team as far as running the ball, playing good defense in the trenches. But you guys let me know what you think in the chat of what the identity of this team is. Personally, when Matt Ryan was here and we had Julio Jones, when we had Calvin Ridley, when we had Mohamed Sanu, I feel like the team was a passing team and a finesse team, and we got turnovers. We weren't really that great in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. We were just really good at turning opposing teams over and getting out to big leads and playing with big leads and, trying to outscore teams. But I feel like this team is going to be a more grinded out, physical type of team. I believe we'll be able to put up points, but I think that this team is going to be more of a grinded out type football team that's going to get back to playing like that 90s style of football, similar to what the Tennessee Titans do with Ryan Tannehill, similar to what they do with Derrick Henry, and grinding teams down, and in the fourth quarter trying to tire teams out and running the football and playing smash mouth football. But with that being said, I'm going to jump back into the chat. Let's see here. And it looks like here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Looks like a lot of you guys are talking to each other in the chat, so shouts out to that. Tony Wright says, at Noah, hey Noah, what's happening? Yeah, Kwiatkowski was with the Bears, then the Raiders. He got after it and made tackles. And that's another guy I forgot to talk about as well. Yeah, Kwiatkowski, he's another guy that's on that linebacking core. So our linebacking core is going to be really good. And Locked In Sports says we are stacked on D this year. I love it. Need those timely stops. Exactly. Yeah, we need those timely turnovers. We talk about it we've said it numerous times on our shows, either the heavy hitter shows or even after the games last season, doing the post game shows. We always talked about being able to get the timely turnover, being able to seize the moment. As I always say, it's 2 or 3 plays in a game that change the game and flip the momentum, and usually either win the game or lose the game. Aunt Jay says physical defense, run the ball, stop the run. Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna have to do if we want to be successful this year, and I think that's what they're building here in Atlanta. Noah says I think the identity of this team should stay the Atlanta Falcons joke, but our former weakness should try to be our strengths. Exactly. Yeah. Being able to stop the run, being able to run the ball, being able to turn over the opposing team. Let's see. And y'all see my boy Man Mike says only 8 likes. Y'all got to get more likes. Yeah, definitely hit that like button for your boy. Let's get the algorithm going. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys. We got 20 in the chat, so if I can get all 20 of you guys to hit that like button for your boy, I would appreciate it. And you guys can start as well throwing your questions for Q&A in there as well. While I scroll through and look here. And Dre Murphy says we stacked on both sides of the ball, point blank, period. Yeah, I mean, we did a good job of bringing in a young football team. We have a lot of young players on this team. On defense, especially, I feel like the defense is really, really young, but the offense is young as well. Other than Cordero Patterson and Marcus Mariota, and then Jake Matthews, you're really, really young at the skill position, wide receivers and running backs. We don't really have a lot of older guys on this team. All right, let's see here, and we're going to go ahead and open it up to fan Q&A as well. So if you guys want to start dropping your questions. And what up, Brian Peoples? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining. Locked In Sports says physical wideouts. Exactly. Yeah, we're definitely gonna be a basketball team. We're definitely gonna be physical. And Mad Mike says, what are your thoughts on Anthony Rush? How important is it that he to be the Falcons D line? How important? I think Anthony Rush is one of those guys that needs to be a starter. Like, we didn't go out and get Big Mike Davis from Georgia. So I think Anthony Rush is one of those guys that's going to have to be a starter for our team. I think he should be that one tech for our team. I think he'll battle it out with Vincent Taylor, and if Timmy Horn makes the team, I think those 3 guys will battle it out for that nose tackle position. But I think that Anthony Rush is one of those guys that needs to be a starter. I mean, when he played last year, him and Mike Pennell played really well, but I believe Anthony Rush had a forced fumble. I think it was the game against the Jaguars, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correctly. But yeah, Anthony Rush is one of those guys that's big, 320 plus pounds, and a really big guy. Is a guy who would block up and stop a lot of that stuff, stuff in the run game. So you guys know how I feel about Grady Jarrett playing at 1 tech. I prefer Grady Jarrett at the 3 tech and him sliding all over the line. But I think that Anthony Rush has to be that guy on first and second downs. You got to have Anthony Rush, Timmy Horn, or Vincent Taylor, one of those guys in the game at all times to help stop the run. And Dre says, Jew, how many wide receivers you see us keeping and which ones you got us keeping? Let me see here. So Drake London, we know he's making the team. I don't know if you guys consider Kyle Pitts wide receiver, or tight end. So I'll say he's one of the pass catchers. The kid Edwards that we brought in, I think he'll make the team that we traded for from the Raiders. OZ, Alameda Zacchaeus, he'll make the team. So that's 4 wide receivers right there. Alden Tate, I think he'll make the team. So that's 5 wide receivers. And then I think this Falcons team probably carries like 6 wide receivers. So that last spot is going to come down to like Geronimo Allison and whoever the other guys that we have out there. Damiere Byrd, I don't know if you guys consider him a wide receiver / running back, but Damiere Byrd, they'll fight it out. I think Damiere Byrd and the kid Hodge, I think those guys battle it out for that 6th position. But I think we'll carry like 6 wide receivers. So I think a couple of the wide receivers will probably be on the practice squad as usual, just in case someone gets hurt. But I think on the 53-man roster, I think that'll be the 5 that are locks. I think Zacchaeus will make it, London will make it, Edwards will make it, OZ will make it, and then the other guys will battle it out. So like the Damiere Byrds, the Cordero Hodges, those guys will battle it out for that 6th position to be like on the 53-man roster. But some of those guys are going to have to also play special teams. And then I also left off Frank Darby. So it's that wide receiver room is loaded. And I think Frank Darby is a guy that will make the team because he plays special teams. So that 6th spot probably come down to Frank Darby, Hodge, and Damiere Byrd. Those guys will battle it out for that last position. But let's see here. And I appreciate that. He says, share. Please share out this content. I appreciate that. Locked In Sports. Brian People says, with Avery Williams being switched to running back, do you see him getting snaps out the backfield? I don't see Avery Williams really running the ball a whole lot. I really think that Avery Williams is going to be used more as a pass catching running back. I don't really see him being a guy that they're going to use running the ball between the tackles. But I think that Avery Williams will be really good at catching the ball out of the backfield. And he's a guy you can split out wide because he can run routes like a wide receiver, and he understands spacing because he's a punt returner and a kick returner. He understands how to set up his blocks and things of that nature. And if he hits a crease, he's the guy that can take it to the house. So I love that move of switching him from defense to offense. And I think he'll be a player that they use a lot in bubble screens and stuff like that, where you just throw the ball to him out in space, similar to what we did last season with Cordell Patterson and with Zacchaeus. Throw them the ball, with space and with blockers out in front of them, and allow them to go out there and create. I think that's what Avery Williams does best. And let's see here. I'm going to take a drink of water. Let's see. And Wallace Smith says, I think Rush will be the starter at nose tackle. Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think he needs to be the nose tackle. And the RC plane maker, he says, we badly need at least 40 sacks. I just need us to get after the quarterback and cause turnovers. I don't really think that there's a number that we have to get to when it comes to sacks. I just think we have to disrupt the passer. We have to help our secondary out by getting pressure on the quarterback, because that causes incomplete passes, that causes interceptions when you're able to tip the ball. And when you're able to get pressure, you force the quarterback off his spot, and you make the quarterback uncomfortable, which usually throws off the timing of a lot of those routes that those receivers are running. So I just need us to push the pocket. I need to see this Falcons team, disrupt the passer. I need them to get after it this year. So I'm not so much locked in on a certain number that we have to get to when it comes to sacks. I just think we need to be better at putting pressure and not giving the quarterback all day to throw the ball. And Tony Wright says, Jew, what are your thoughts on signing veteran free agent Carlos Dunlap, 6'6", as a rotational DN? He could help us in that role. I asked Mike this question yesterday, and I think that Mike actually did a video on this on Carlos Dunlap, the longtime Cincinnati Bengals defensive end. I would love to have him on this team because you guys know I've talked about having a veteran defensive end on this team because we're really young at that defensive end position. Other than Lorenzo Carter, we really don't have any veterans that's done it at the highest level. And Carlos Dunlap did it he's done it for a very long time in the NFL, being a guy that has gotten double-digit sacks, and he did a pretty good job for the Seattle Seahawks last year when he was traded from the Bengals. So I think the Falcons should definitely take a look at a guy like Carlos Dunlap. Also, Jason Pierre-Paul was another guy. JPP, he's another guy that I want the Falcons to take a look at. But I think somebody mentioned it in the chat. I think the Carolina Panthers was looking at possibly signing, if they didn't already sign, Carlos Dunlap. But if he's still out there, I definitely think the Falcons should take a look at him because you guys know I believe in strength in numbers. I don't believe in having just one guy. If that gets that you look to get you 10 to 15 sacks in the season. If you luck up and get a player that's elite and that's like a TJ Watt or a JJ Watt in his day or Aaron Donald that can get you multiple sacks, double-digit sacks every season, you might strike gold. But I believe in having a gang of guys. If you can have like 4 or 5 guys that can get you between 5 and 7 sacks, then you'll be good on the defensive side of the ball on the defensive line. Because if you only have that one guy that can consistently get you double-digit sacks, what happens if he gets injured? Then you don't have anybody else that you can rely upon. So I believe in strength in numbers over just having one elite pass rusher. The more pass rushers you have, the better. So I feel like you never can have enough pass rushers. And Floyd Donnelly, what's going on, man? He says 30 points a game defense that can hold the lead. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I don't really care about necessarily how many points necessarily the team gives up. I mean, usually the better teams in the league don't allow a lot of points, and there are teams where other teams get in the red zone. They hold you to field goals, usually the better teams in the league. But I feel like this team just has to be better next year at getting turnovers. They have to give the offense more opportunities at short fields and, giving us good field position. And I think we have to be better at, like I said, stopping the run. If you stop the run and, on first and second down, you put the opponents in harm's way when you force them to go through 3rd and longs, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6. That gives your pass rushers time to get to the quarterback. But if you're in a lot of 3rd and short situations, meaning 3rd and 5 or less, so 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, usually teams are going to convert in that situation if you don't have a good defensive line, if you can't stop the run. And last year we were giving up like 5 yards, 4 yards, crazy amount of yards per carry, a clip. So when you're giving up that type of yardage in the run game, usually you're going to struggle. Let's see here. Noah says, should we try to lock up AJ and Lindstrom next season of the year or the year after? Now may be cheaper, but a year later could let us get more players to build upon for 2023 after good year in 2022. I feel like you pay players as early as you can. Dallas, waited to sign Dak Prescott. They made him play out his contract, and you see they end up having to pay him King's ransom. So personally, I'm on the side of you pay players before their contract is up so they can't demand top dollar. I mean, that's kind of where we fell into the trap with Foye. His contract was up. He was an unrestricted free agent, so he went to the highest bidder. So, but I definitely know that they're going to get AJ Tyrell and Chris Lindstrom locked up. Like, I'm not too worried about it, but I would pay them as soon as possible. I wouldn't roll the dice, especially on AJ Tyrell. I really wouldn't roll him and Lindstrom. I wouldn't roll the dice. If you can get something done at the end of this season or even during this season, well, I think we don't have the money right now, but if you can get something done, I'll say going into next season when we have that cap space, I think you need to get AJ Terrell's deal done because as we know, usually the next player to get paid sets the market. So we've seen, corners just get signed to big, top dollar deals. So we want to get AJ Terrell and those guys signed as quick as possible so we don't have to pay as much when it's time for those guys to get paid. And we know that AJ Terrell and Chris Lindstrom, if those guys were to hit the open market, teams are going to give them a king's ransom. They're going to throw all of the money they can at them. Let's see here. Isaac's Crimes, he says, Brian Edwards is good at getting separation at the line of scrimmage, running routes, and getting jump balls. Yeah, we have a lot of guys. Brian Edwards is a guy who I think is a really, really sleeper pick for our team. Like, I went and watched tape when he was at South Carolina, and he's one of those guys that I think is really slept on. I'm surprised that the Raiders actually gave up on him, but I think it was more of the line of they just signed Devontae Adams and they just signed Hunter Renfrow. So they couldn't pay all of those guys. So I think that was the reason why they let Brian Edwards go and they traded him. But Brian Edwards is really, really good. Like, I really think our wide receiving core is probably one of the most underrated wide receiving cores in the league, just based off of paper. We'll see what these guys do on the field, but I think that these guys are going to turn a lot of heads because we have guys that are unproven, but they're really, really good players. Like, Drake London, he was really good in college. We don't know what he'll be in the pros, but I think it'll translate. Brian Edwards, he had flashes when he was with the Raiders last season, where he played really well. And then you got guys like Alden Tate. When he was with the Bengals, he played really well. He just didn't get a lot of opportunities. So we have a lot of guys that have high ceilings, and guys that could turn out to be star players, moving forward. And Tony Wright says Avery Williams will be our punt returner and our kick returner. We'll see. I think he will be both for our team, but Cordell Patterson is another guy that they used last year in certain situations to run back kickoffs. I definitely think that Avery Williams is the lock when it comes to the actual punt return. I don't think Cordell Patterson is getting back there to do any punt returning, but I definitely agree. And Andrew G, he's one of the members of my channel. So shout outs to Andrew G, man. What's going on? I appreciate you always supporting the channel and continuing to tune in. Make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button for your boy. And this is a great comparison by Bubble Gump. He says Antone Smith type of guy. Yeah, I was a huge Antone Smith fan when he was with our Falcons. It seemed like every time he touched the football, he scored a touchdown or he was a big play waiting to happen. When he got his opportunities, he definitely seized the moment. I believe that was 2018. I don't remember exactly what season that was when we had Antone Smith. I know it was a couple years ago, but he was a really, really good player. Or may have been even earlier than that, maybe like 2015 or something like that. But Antone Smith was a really good player, and I think that's a really good comparison with Avery Williams. I think Antone Smith may have been a little bit faster though than a guy like Avery Williams, but they have a similar body type. Both guys were really small, stocky type guys, but definitely if they hit a crease, both of those guys can take it a distance. And Mad Mike says pressure in key moments, Jew. Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, we need pressure. You guys know I'm big on the defensive line, even though my favorite position on the defense is the DBs. Deion Sanders was my first favorite player in the NFL. So I'm a huge Deion fan, and AJ Tyrell, I'm a huge fan of AJ Tyrell and huge fan of the secondary and the cornerback position. But when it comes to winning games, everything starts in the trenches. If you can't block for your quarterback, if you can't block for your running back, the offense is going to have a hard time being successful. And if you can't stop the run, like we seen last year when we played against Buffalo, where we were shutting them down when they were trying to throw the ball, and then the floodgates opened when Josh Allen decided, well, I'm just going to run the ball every single play down you guys' throat. It didn't matter how good our secondary was at that point because we couldn't stop them from running the football up, moving the ball up and down the field. Let's see here. And thank you for that correcting me. Brian People says Antone Smith 2013 to 2014. Yeah, I know it was years ago when he was with us, but he was a really electric player before. I think he broke his leg or something like that. But he was one of those guys that was really explosive and really underrated. And this is a great statement as well by Mad Mike. He says, obviously, I don't. I'll say Arthur, but I'd say Arthur Smith. I don't think he's getting the respect for what he did last year with last year's team. Yeah, I don't think Arthur Smith winning 7 games with that roster we had last year was like a miracle. So for us to be in playoff contention, like down to the last couple weeks of the season, was a great coaching job by this coaching staff, and that's why I'm really excited about this year. We have a ton of weapons, and I think that he has a lot of weapon at his disposal this year. Arthur Smith has a bunch of weapons, so I definitely expect this Atlanta Falcons team to be a lot better on offense and on defense, but definitely on offense because now you got the weapons. Let's see. And I got to scroll up a little bit here. Tony Bright says, I believe this defense is going to make a lot of noise and a lot of news going our days of third and fourth downs and 15 and 20 or more letting teams convert. Yeah, I mean we struggled the last couple years, but it all comes down to the line of scrimmage. Like if you can get pressure on the actual quarterback and if you can stop the run, you put teams in harm's way on third and longs. And that's something that we kind of struggle with on offense because we haven't been able to run the ball well the last couple years. We ended up in a lot of third and long situations, a lot of third and sevens, third and eights, and then sometimes even like third and 15s because of pre-snap penalties and stuff like that. So when you do that, you set your quarterback up to get sacked. When you're, putting those teams, putting your wide receivers in that situation where they gotta, run past the sticks. It's not many plays that teams have in their playbook for third and 15 and third and long. Most teams, they only have certain situations and certain plays for those type of scenarios. So if you're living in third and longs, it's going to be hard to convert, third and longs. That's usually when your quarterback gets sacked. And that's usually now in today's NFL, that's usually when a defense is going to blitz on third and long or third down because they know the ball has to come out quick if you bring an extra man on a blitz. And usually you're not going to be able to convert. You're going to have to throw the ball short of the sticks where usually your player's going to get tackled short of the first down. So we got to be better. Like we got to be better on first and second downs. That's a must. Let's see here. And D Sloan says, which offensive and defensive player do you think will make an impact this coming season? On offense, I think it'll be Drake London. Like I think he'll be the biggest addition to our team. We know what Kyle Pitts is. We've seen what Kyle Pitts did last year, but Drake London is a guy who I think is the number one wide receiver. Like, so he's gonna come in, I think, and put the league on notice. I think he comes in his first season and he's capable of having over 1,000 yards receiving in his first year because Kyle Pitts is going to draw the double teams. And until Drake London proves himself, teams are going to play him one-on-one or they're going to have to play him one-on-one because of the presence of Kyle Pitts. And with Kyle Pitts being our number one target, automatically Drake London is going to eat off of that. Him and Brian Edwards, I think they're going to be the recipients of a lot of one-on-one coverage. And I think that Drake London is a beast when it comes down to being able to catch, contested footballs and, catching that jump ball. He's one of the better young receivers in the NFL. I definitely think he's going to be a guy this season that could follow right in Kyle Pitts' footsteps as being a first-year Pro Bowler. Like, I really think that Drake London has that type of ability in year one. I think he's going to be similar to one of those guys like a Megatron. I'm not saying he's Megatron because Megatron was a lot faster, but I think that Drake London has that Megatron ability, that Randy Moss ability where you just throw the ball up anywhere in his vicinity, similar to a Kyle Pitts, throw the ball up. If it's one-on-one coverage, 90% of the time, 90% of the times, Drake London is going to catch the ball over in a one-on-one situation because he's a former basketball player. So he's one of those guys that understands how to position his body. He understands how to catch those back shoulder fades and things of that nature. And he's one of those guys that goes up and catches the football at his highest point. So he's really, really, really hard to stop in a man-to-man or one-on-one situations because of his size. And he knows how to use his frame. And what's going on, Melvin Emery? He said, "What's up, Jew?" And Atlanta Falcons fans, rise up. Yeah, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me tonight. And we got about 15 more minutes. I'm going to take a couple more questions. So continue to drop your questions in the chat. And I'm going to try to hit some of the people that I haven't hit. If you guys drop a question in the chat, maybe somebody that just joined as well. And Tony Rice says, Arthur Smith seems like a man driven to win a Super Bowl. His body language just seems driven in a way to me. Yeah, Arthur Smith is one of those guys that's really, really serious. And he's one of those guys that I think will, I don't know if he'll lead us to a Super Bowl, but I definitely think that he's a guy who believes that this team believes in his players, believes in this team. Last year, even though he didn't have, the adequate weapons, we pretty much played every team down to the wire. Like last year's team was a couple games away from making the playoffs. And that's due to Arthur Smith and the coaching staff. Let's see here. Tony Rex says, I agree, Jew. When you speak of Drake London, which is more reason to have Cordell Patterson as the wide receiver 2, full time with Kyle Pitts as our tight end. That's a formidable base package. Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think that Cordell Patterson is a guy they're gonna use everywhere, though. He's not a receiver, he's an offensive weapon. So, and the same thing with Kyle Pitts. I really think we're going to use Kyle Pitts the same way we used him last year. They keep listing Kyle Pitts as a tight end, but really Kyle Pitts is lining up. He's going to line up mainly as a wide receiver. Like, I really still think he's going to line up a lot outside, and he's going to line up all over the field. Him and Drake London. Drake London is a guy who can line up in the slot, and he lined up in the slot a lot in college. So that's another thing that I think with Drake London, why he's going to be a guy that's going to have a lot of yards receiving this year and could be a sneaky, Pro Bowl pick this year, is because he's a guy that you can line up in the slot. And in third down situations, we know that the NFL is about matchups. And if you put a linebacker or even a slot corner or safety on Drake London one-on-one where he has a two-way go, 9 times out of 10, Drake London is winning that matchup. I don't care who you put on him because of his size. And Locked In Sports says Mariota's going to be throwing rebounds. Exactly. I expect us to see a lot of back shoulder fades on this offense. Like last season, we didn't see that a whole lot with Matt Ryan because we didn't see a ton of bootlegs. But this year, expect to see a ton of bootlegs where guys are rolling out of the pocket, whether it's Ritter or whether it's Mariota. You're going to see a lot of bootlegs and you're going to see a lot of back shoulder fades because that really is one of the easier throws for a quarterback to make because you're just throwing the ball to a spot. The receiver, it kind of makes it harder on the receiver because they have to adjust their body. But we have 2 of the best wide receivers when it comes down to the back shoulder fades, and that's Drake London and that's Kyle Pitts. Both of those guys have great body control. Both of those guys are really big wide receivers. And even a guy like Brian Edwards, him and Alden Tate, both of those guys are really big as well. But I think Kyle Pitts and Drake London, you can go pull it up on YouTube or go look at highlights of those guys. They have a ton of plays where they're catching back shoulder fades when they were in college, and both of those guys have a ton of plays where they were catching fades in the back of the end zone when they were on the collegiate level. So I think you're going to see a lot of that from whoever the quarterback is those back shoulder fades and those timing throws where you just lob it up and let those guys play basketball. And Delayed J says, "Do you feel like we improve on the special team side of the ball?" And this is a question probably for Six Man, K Styles, because he loves talking about the special teams unit. And I think we have one of the better special teams units in the NFL. Last year we kind of struggled to punt the football early on because we had Cam Nazalek who struggled early on because it was his first year in the league. But when we got Thomas Morstead, the veteran, we brought him in. We were one of the best teams when it came to punt coverage and punting the football. Young Wei Koo is for itself. Young Wei Koo is a um, Pro Bowl points last year with kick field goals. So I definitely think that our special teams is underrated, and I think we'll have one of the better special teams units. Now, the punting, our punter, I'm not too sure about our punter this year because I haven't really seen a lot out of him. I believe we got a new punter because we weren't able to keep Thomas Morstead. So that'll be the biggest question when it comes to special teams. But as far as kicking field goals, Young Wei Koo is like automatic. He's one of the best in the league. And that's a great Aunt Jay, that's a great nickname for this Atlanta Falcons wide receiving unit. He said a great wall of Atlanta. Yeah, exactly. That would be like those guys, yeah, we're really, really athletic. And Tony Wright says we are going to get a lot of pass interference calls in our favor this season because these corners won't be able to cover our wide receivers. Right. Because of the physicality. Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with this statement. Yeah, they're going to struggle to cover our wide receivers. Whoever we play, they're going to struggle. And I think we have mismatches all over the field. So I think that's a reason why Arthur Smith went out and got all of these big wide receivers, not only because we run a lot of slants and a lot of, routes over the middle of the field, but I think he wanted these bigger guys as well. Because when you throw the ball up, even if there's not a ton of space, because I've been hearing a lot of people talking about the speed of our wide receivers. And I talk about this all the time. Separation is not just how much distance you have, away from the actual corner, but it's also vertically. If you throw the ball high, you have a big wide receiver, creating separation could just be jumping off of the ground, elevating and catching the ball and creating space that way. And that's something that we didn't have last season. Other than Kyle Pitts, we didn't really have many jump ball wide receivers. We had a lot of smaller wide receivers. But this year, even if your guys are not getting that much distance away from the corners when they're running routes, because of the length of our wide receivers, if you throw it anywhere in their vicinity and you throw it high, these guys will be able to create separation by just getting off the ground and going up and catching the ball, basically high pointing the football at its highest point and creating separation that way. So it's not always about being able to have blazing speed and run past guys, but also being able to make contested catches and being able to elevate and go and get the football and not wait for the ball to come to you. And Mad Mike says Seth Vernon and Don Maggio. Yeah, I'm not too sure about our punters. I heard K Style saying some really good things about Seth Vernon, I believe, and I think we've had Don Maggio on our team for at least a year or two. So I've seen that name before, but I'm not too sure about Seth Vernon. But I hope these guys are really good punters because to me, I was surprised that the Falcons didn't bring back Thomas Morstead because he played really well, but I think that came down to money, how much money he wanted. Let's see here. And Noah says, with those pass interference calls, Mariota Ritter may finish the season with like 2,000 passing yards and 2,000 in penalty yards. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, exactly. I think this year, I really think Mariota or Ritter, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people because you don't really need a quarterback that has great accuracy when you have wide receivers that's this big and that can adjust to the football. Last season, Matt Ryan had to be really, really accurate because he didn't have wide receivers that could actually separate, and he didn't have wide receivers that could make contested catches. Our receivers dropped a lot of passes in tight coverage. But now that you have these big body guys, um, you're going to have a lot more opportunities for guys to make our quarterbacks look good, even if it's not an accurate pass. These guys going to get the football. They're going to make Ritter or Mariota look good in a lot of situations because of their length. If you look at the play today that Kyle Pitts had on that route that he ran against AJ Tyrell, the pass was like thrown to a spot and it was a little bit wide, but Kyle Pitts was able to adjust his body and make the catch for the touchdown during OTA. So that just goes to show you like the pass doesn't have to be perfect when you have these guys with that length that can go out there and go out there and get the ball. Tony Wright says Olamide Zaccheaus will benefit from the bigger receivers we have, as he will be getting deep. And when he's not going deep, he will still make big yards after the catch. Yeah, I agree, because you have big wide receivers that's going to be able to block for him. Last year, that was another thing I think that kind of went overlooked, because our wide receivers were smaller. They weren't great at blocking. Ever since we pretty much lost Julio Jones, we lost the Muhammad Sanus of the world. We lost Roddy White and those guys. We really haven't had great wide receivers as far as when it came to blocking. We know that Calvin Ridley is not the biggest guy. Olamide Zaccheaus and those guys, Russell Gage, those guys weren't great blockers. So I definitely think having a guy like Drake London at 6'4", having Kyle Pitts 6'6", and having Alden Tate at 6'4", 6'5". I mean, you have the guys with the length and guys that are will be able to outmuscle and physical a lot of these corners that are on average like 5'10" or 5'11". So you have the advantage on the edges. If you throw a screen pass, because of the size of our wide receivers, they're going to have the advantage physically to oppose their will on corners and things of that nature. And Bubba Gump says, throw at Lattimore side the entire game, Mr. Grab a jersey. I mean, that's the whole Saints secondary. Those guys are going to hold. So I'm looking forward to the first game of the season, because I know London, Kyle Pitts, they're going to give those guys fits, because the Saints, one thing that they do is they get up on you. They play press man coverage. CJ Gardner-Johnson and those guys, they're going to get up in your face. Lattimore, they're going to get physical with your wide receivers. So you got to have big guys that's going to compete and be able to catch the ball at the point of attack with guys draped all over them. And that's something that I think Arthur Smith noticed just by watching tape on the guys that we had last season, watching the games and stuff like that, and not seeing the proper spacing, not seeing guys being able to get open. I think that was the reason why they, went heavy in bringing in bigger wide receivers, more physically imposing wide receivers. But with that being said, we're going to get ready to wind it down. I see right here, he says, imagine Tyrann Mathieu trying to cover Kyle Pitts. Yeah, that's going to be scary. Even though I'm a big Honey Badger fan, I think the Tyrann Mathieu, that was a good pickup for the Saints. None of the cornerbacks on the Saints are going to be able to cover our wide receivers man to man. Like, these guys are too big. I mean, they'll put up a fight, but if it comes down to we're just lofting the ball up and it's a jump ball, and one of the guys got to come down with it, I'm putting my money on Kyle Pitts. I'm putting my money on Drake London. I'm putting my money on Brian Edwards and these guys, because of their, sure strength and these guys' strong hands. I really think if it comes down to one-on-one, I really think that these guys are going to be able to make plays. Personally, I think we're going to see a lot of teams play a lot of zone coverage. I don't think a lot of teams are going to try to man up against us because of our size of our wide receivers. I think a lot of teams are going to try to play a lot of zone and try to disguise what they're doing. But with that being said, let's see here. I'm going to answer maybe 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up here for the night. But I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining me tonight. And please hit that like, hit that subscribe button for your boy. Not just here on my channel, but as I mentioned, 6-Man K Styles. He's on his road to 1,000 subscribers. My bro over there, I think he's only like I said, less than 120 away. So let's get him to 1,000, and also go over and hit that like and subscribe button for my boy Mad Mike as well. I think he's on his road to 10K. So you guys hit that like and subscribe, and definitely hit that like button and subscribe button here. I'm on my road to 2,000 subscribers. Let's see here. And Noah Tyndale says, give them flashbacks to when we had to cover Jimmy Graham with Brent Grimes. Yeah, Brent Grimes was a really good corner, but that size, Jimmy Graham killed us for years when he was with the Saints because of that size and his size and his athleticism. And Ghost Pepper says we had a hard time protecting the quarterback when the ball came out with great anticipation. Not something Mariota is known for, so there will be hard times ahead if this line isn't top half or the league good. Ghost Peppers, I agree with somewhat of what you're saying, but I think that Mariota will be okay because he can escape some of that pressure with his legs. And then I think he has an advantage over Matt Ryan in the fact that if he just throws the ball up and it's a one-on-one situation, he has the advantage that he has big wide receivers where you can just throw, loft that ball up there and one of your receivers are going to go make a play on it. Last year, Matt Ryan really didn't have, that I'm just going to throw it up and somebody's going to come down with it. He did it a couple times with Russell Gage last year in that 49ers game, and he did it a few times with Kyle Pitts last year when they were on the same page. But I think this year we have the advantage pretty much all across the field because of the size. So I definitely think that as far as the big wide receivers, we have the advantage when it comes to just, Mariota scramble out the pocket, the play breaks down. You've got, one of our receivers or tight ends, breaks down the field. And if they're in one-on-one situation, I'm going to put my money on our wide receiver being able to go up and catch the football at its highest point because of their size. If it's like a Drake London or a Kyle Pitts or even Alden Tate, all of those guys are athletic enough to make, that jump ball type play. Last year, we didn't really have that with Tajay Sharp. Even with Russell Gage, he's not a player that's known for catching jump balls, even though he had a couple spectacular catches last year. He's not the biggest guy, but with the wide receivers we have now, we should be able to be a basketball team and go up and basically rebound the football. So I definitely think we'll be one of the better teams when it comes to that. And with that being said, I'm gonna take one more question for the night, and then we're gonna get up out of here, and I'll give you guys y'all Wednesday night back. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in tonight, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and sharing out my content. And Dre Murphy, he says, good night, everyone. Happy early Father's Day to all the fathers in the chat. Most definitely, this Sunday is Father's Day, so shouts out to each and every father that's out there. Shouts out to all the men. You guys definitely enjoy this Sunday. But with that being said, I don't see any other questions. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see any other questions here in the chat. So I'm gonna get ready to jump off here. But Aunt Jay says, great show. I appreciate you guys joining tonight as always. And I believe K Styles will be doing his show tomorrow night as well. So you guys make sure you tune in tomorrow night for Kicking It with K Styles, the sixth man. He will be doing the show tomorrow night. And make sure y'all help him get to that 1,000 subscribers. But with that being said, I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for continuing to support the channel, continuing to like, share, and subscribe. I will have a lot more content coming for you guys this week. Now that OTAs is over, we're just ramping up for training camp. So I'm definitely looking forward to training camp. And the heavy hitters will be having some live shows coming up as well. We did a show last Wednesday, and we're probably going to start alternating Wednesdays with what's the word and with the heavy hitters. So you guys stay tuned. But with that being said, this been your boy Jew. I'll holler at you guys in the next video or in the next live show. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.